Hello and welcome to a special BG podcast. This is episode 243. I'm A.J. Bingham, founder and CEO of Bingham Group, and joining me is associate Hannah Garcia.
Hello, everybody.
So, as we promised from yesterday's show, we are doing a recap of observations from last night's city manager candidate finalist town hall. This was a public moderated discussion between our two finalists, T.C. Broadnax, who is the current city manager of the city of Dallas, and Sara Hensley, who's the current city manager of the city of Denton. It featured 30 minutes each of a moderated discussion of 8 questions, and here we're just going to give you our impressions of it. We also have a new BG blog that was out this morning in the BG Reads that recaps it, but just my initial thoughts, Hannah, I attended the meeting. I think both candidates, top of the line, we have two quality candidates, and I think the city would be served well with either of them. They both bring different strengths, and I think, or just different qualities to it, as we, objectively see, right? We have a current city manager of a smaller town. The city of Denton's about, 200,000 people or so. Mm-hmm. City of Dallas, about a little bit over 1 million.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that Denton, grows in size, probably, double during the school year because UNT's right there. So definitely some similar dynamics to here. But once again, the city of Dallas also has SMU, Dallas College, among other things.
UTD.
Yeah,
and I think and just the different issues that go with that too. And so we have a link to the town hall that was recorded in English and Spanish. That's in the BG blog post. But overall, I think both candidates answered the questions well. They covered issues. Those 8 questions covered public safety, their approach to tackling the homelessness, the continuing challenge of homelessness in our city. I think a key one, though, and this came up this morning, I saw on a different article, was transparency and working with city staff. And it's timely because a survey was done. We'll have linked this in the show notes, but there seems to be, at least what was reported in the city survey of city employees versus to city management, a disconnect in their trust in the city. And so this is internal to the city, but ultimately, it's important, whoever the city manager is, the leader, and how do you build that trust? And again, our city of Austin has about 15,000 employees. So that's going to be, I think, an interesting challenge for whoever takes that seat. This morning, according to this is on Tuesday, at 8:30, council went into executive session to interview both candidates separately. Once that's over, I know they'll have a short media availability, and so we'll be watching that and seeing what's discussed. But Hannah, any thoughts? You read the blog, and just we've been following this for quite a while. You've seen their bios. Any thoughts on the candidates, and just as we go into, I think, the final stretch of this process?
I think based off of the answers the candidates gave, they clearly are hearing some things about transparency and how council and the city manager, along with staff and department directors, interface with each other. They definitely listened to that mosaic, what is it called? The survey they sent out to staff. I think that's what really, kind of colored and shaped their answers today. One of the things we didn't really see much talk about was land use. I think that's one of the things.
At all?
Yeah, that's one of the things that the city, tears itself apart over sometimes. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't address that, but that's just the nature of the job. The city manager doesn't necessarily have very many eggs in that basket in the sense that they're not, going to die on the hill of density if they're just going to push the policy that council does. Mm-hmm. So this was a really great showcase, I think, of what the city manager does, and I think these two candidates have a really good understanding of it. One of the things they also echoed was that they want, or specifically Hensley brought this up, was just talking to department heads and directors and understanding what they're doing. I think that's something we've seen and we've heard interim city manager Jesus Garza talk about how he kind of, goes to bat for his directors. If he has to stand between them and council and defend their actions, he's going to. I think we kind of saw a similar vein of conversation about that with these candidates. Additionally, community engagement. This city loves community engagement, and both candidates talked about that. Hensley was saying, they want to be out in the community a lot, which I think might have been easier in Denton just because it is smaller. But even Broadnax also spoke about wanting to have those conversations with community members to understand what's going on. So both candidates, I think, have different sets of skills, but they seem to really have a good understanding of what they're walking into.
Which is I think fundamentally, that's definitely the key thing. Come back to the questions, right? So these were compiled from about 868 responses from the public. That was the city had put out that survey, and so I'm assuming some of those were put into buckets as well. But it was interesting, right? That land use wasn't one of them, right, in some way or form. And then also finance.
Yes.
This is a fiscal thing. As we know, we're City of Austin, as most major cities in Texas, because of some actions that were taken in the legislature in the last several cycles, we're limited on our ability to raise our taxes. And so we're most likely the city will be into a very tight budget cycle as we've been in the last several cycles. And it was interesting that those weren't raised. It wasn't something the candidates aren't going to, you answer the questions on the test that are answered, you're not going to go out of the guardrails of those, right? But those are very big topics, especially the finance part, the budget part.
Yeah. I also think that they were limited in what they could say, in the sense that not everyone in the public understands these words that we speak in. Sometimes we often speak in a different language. I think we speak the same language as engineers sometimes, and other times we're talking like we're finance guys. So I think they were limited in the sense that they wanted everyone to understand what they were talking about. So I think some people might have viewed a lot of these answers as fluff answers, but it was more or less they were trying to answer the question in a holistic way while not getting into the technical weeds, which I was reading a lot of this stuff, and sometimes I would get frustrated because well, why aren't they talking about this, or why aren't they talking about this? But understanding that we, me and you, along with a lot of staffers in council, we have a really, really high level understanding of this stuff because we are looking at it every day. We understand this specific article in the budget does this, whereas other people just see that, oh, it's a budget. And so,
hey, just fix it.
Exactly. I think, it's similar to, it always reminds me of people who are obsessed with Game of Thrones, and I'll just be watching it and I'll be oh, a dragon, awesome. And they're no, this dragon was this person's dragon and this person's dragon.
Very, very apt.
And so I have to remind myself that I am a nerd, and not everyone enjoys a planning commission Tuesday night like I do.
Well, God bless you for those too, because it's certainly not my cup of tea. Yeah, and so I think too as well, right? I think one thing to watch, whoever ultimately is selected as our next city manager, will be their leadership team. As you've done a great job doing the last year and a half at this point, of tracking all the significant amount of changes that have happened on the city leadership or City of Austin org chart. Again, significant roles that need to be filled: airport director, police chief, our Austin Energy Director, several assistant team managers, and you watch my abbreviations, but a significant amount of organizational positions to be filled. And while we have some roles have had interim removed from them, again, all of these roles were created and all of these shifts happened under an interim leader. Just I don't view that as permanent until we have a permanent leader in the seat and that person makes those decisions. Right, and so a lot of change will be occurring. I don't know what will happen over as a kind of back to Game of Thrones, kind of red wedding style. But for those, if you know, you know. Yes. But I think I do expect, once someone's selected, and really when they start to see changes kind of happening over maybe by December of this year and into Q1 and Q2 of 25, if not through the summer of 25, which I can't believe we're talking about that, but that's what we're dealing with here. And so, but I think the first, if I had to predict whoever city manager, I think the police contract will be handled and settled before, or finalized before this new person comes in. But the police chief search, I believe, will probably be the most significant of all the leadership positions to work through. That'll probably be the one to me will be the biggest challenge. I mean, I think it will be a challenge because it's a challenging role, right, to fill on that search and how that's done, and all the constituencies in Austin that have a view of that. I think you look at our most recent district attorney race is kind of a proxy for that, right? Public safety is big in the city, and how people view the lens with which they view it. We're not unified in that.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. And both candidates have had issues with public safety in their respective cities. I think most recently we saw Broadnax. He actually had to both fire and then hire another police chief during his tenure. So I definitely think he gets all of that, the political nature of it all. But yeah, I definitely think that public safety is, a can of worms, and how we address that going forward is going to be definitely um, controversial, just because we often hear we don't have enough police, um, and so once we do get fully staffed up, what is the policing we do going to look like? Are we going to continue on the same um, path where we're including a lot more social workers? And both of the candidates address the training. We can't really fix problems we see without addressing how are we training these people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't teach someone all these great philosophical theories without teaching them how to read first. It's you gotta walk before you run. And so I think both of them understand that, but it's just a matter of how are we going to do it, because once again, they're not the sole decision maker. They're kind of leading the boat, and whether we run into an iceberg or we make it all the way into open water, I think is really is going to depend on how we kickstart this process. And are we going to have a lot of community engagement again? Are we going to muddle the process by including a bunch of other things that we don't necessarily need? But yeah, that's going to be, I think, a big lift that we'll likely see several initiatives from the city manager's office once we get a new city manager. I do not see that being a one and done type fix.
Oh no, and I think again, alignment with council, the benefit to whoever ultimately is the selected candidate for our next city manager will inherit a council going into 25 that, by and large, I think it's not going to. Well, it's stable. Not stable is the wrong word. It won't change as much. We'll have several. We have 2 open seats, D7 and D10. Up for they're open. The mayor's race as well. I think some other seats though are fairly safe, and so there'll be a core of folks coming back in on the council dais that were here, that hired and interviewed our current the city manager. 2 won't be back: Councilmember Poole and Councilmember Allison Alter. The rest though, we'll see what happens with mayor's race, but the rest I think will probably most likely be back in. And so you have a core of folks, as we've seen this last year and a half, who've, in terms of council production and having deliberations on very sensitive issues around land use and public safety, have been able to both handle those issues and deliver a lot of, I think, significant ordinances to the city, in a orderly fashion. Mm-hmm. So more to come on that, and I think actually more to come on that probably by next week. I think the goal, as posted on the council message board, was to do the interviews today. Gauging this from how it happened 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when they reviewed all the finalists or all the applicants and picked their finalists. I don't see that. I see that trend continuing. Right, I was counting. You were both surprised how fast it happened. They had 39 applicants. They got there 2 that same day, announced them, and we were off to here.
Yeah, well, if we think back to last summer, I think it was last summer, I remember looking at the timeline and thinking, they haven't even released the RFP yet. Like, how are we going to get all of this stuff in the timeline that they want it to? And now we're several months ahead of that timeline. So kudos to whoever got that RFP written, got everyone selected, and kicked this process off, because I genuinely think they saved the city probably like $1 million in this process.
And again, that goes to just the productivity of our council. You can love them or hate them, but and I know people do, but the meetings, again, they've gotten. We're in the era with the bias towards action era, and I think there is a majority of council members that are, whether they disagree with each other or agree with each other at different times, they have come together, and those meetings are just productive.
Yeah.
Right. And so more to come on that, but I believe the plan for council is they're conducting the interviews with the 2 finalists as we speak. They started at 8:30 this morning. Between now and next week, probably by Friday, actually, they'll have posted on the council agenda for next Thursday's meeting on April 4th, an action item to most likely execute or begin or to order their the executive search firm to begin contract negotiations with their selected finalists. And so more to come on that. And anything else, Hannah, to add?
This is essentially March Madness. So good luck to both candidates. Hopefully they have a great time.
Fun fact, actually, I was rereading Mr. Broadnax's bio, but actually I went to the law school where he went to undergrad at.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas, which is go Ichabods. It's like I caught that. I was like, Washburn? Like, I mean, this is this really small. It's a small school in the state capital of Kansas, but we'll see how that shakes out. But small, fun facts.
Yeah, we'll see how this pans out probably over the course of the next week.
The way council's been moving, I think we'll know by Friday.
Yeah, you'll be hearing from us soon.
All right, take care, y'all.